start over.
No problem. My name is Sue Brown-Moore, and I am a developmental editor for fiction stories, for character-driven fiction stories specifically. My super niche is romance, but that does not mean I'm only good at romance. This is something I'm trying to be better about explaining. But basically, I help make stories better, the story, the transformation journey of the character. The other types of editing are copy editing, which is like grammar, punctuation, spelling, and line, which is line level changes to a sentence or phrase or scene to make it hit harder, to make it feel better within the moment. So I don't really do copy or line. I can, but mostly professionally, I do developmental, which is story content editing. So some couple things that we could do today are I can do a mini consult for 1 or 2 people. If you have a story problem that you want help with, I can try to help you solve that problem. Those usually take about 15 minutes per person. And the other thing I can do is just answer your questions. So what do you want to do?
Well, first I'm curious, are there specific problems that you see that are very common when you do your
Yeah.
mini consults?
So most of my work developmentally goes into making the character transformation full and deep and rich, because that's where the heart of the story is. So in character driven fiction, there's plot driven and character driven. So plot driven would be something like James Bond, right? Like in the shows. So James Bond is suave and he's got skills, and the excitement of watching James Bond is that he's going to go be cool and be successful every week. So it's like external stuff's going to happen to him and he's going to respond in with panache, right? But character driven is more about the growth of the character over the story. So if in a character driven story, the Marvel movies are actually really good examples. So like Spider-Man. Spider-Man starts off believing that he has to be bigger than just the neighborhood Spider-Man, right? Like he's got to be part of the Avengers and he needs the suit and he needs all the things. He needs Tony Stark. He needs all the stuff. But what he really needs is just to be a 16-year-old boy and believe in himself and get comfortable with who he is. So his journey is accepting, like experiencing all that pressure and accepting that's not actually what he needs. So a character driven story is what I edit towards. So if you do not write character driven fiction, you probably don't want to do a story consult with me, because that's what I'm going to try to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, maybe raise some hands in the room if you write character-driven fiction. Okay, so you're in
Oh,
good
good.
company. So
Hey,
does anyone, Jean, Jim,
I do see
Myra?
Jackie's question, and that's a good question. And I'll get to that after the consult,
Okay,
because that's
so
kind of a bigger question.
yes, I see that question too. It's a mystery question. Okay, so does anyone have a specific question you would like to
So
pose
I
to
guess I'm
our,
looking for a story problem that you can concisely state in about 15 to 20 seconds.
whew, we got talkative people in this room.
So like, I don't want
Story
a whole bunch of
problem.
backstory. I'm going to discover what I need. So I want you to say, I'm having a problem with X, or I'm worried about X, or I can't figure out what to do with, right? That's the sort of problems.
Well, I have a problem if no one else wants to speak. Um,
Go for
I
it.
have I have a character who the inciting incident is she tells a bad joke and loses her job. And this haunts her through the whole story, but that's not really what the story's about. So I'm struggling to reconcile the plot with the internal conflict of this character.
So do you know where your character is going to end, like at the end point of the transformation? And when I say that, I mean, what fear is she going to overcome?
Fear of, yeah, fear of judgment and um, fear of being lost in the noise.
So maybe fear of not being seen. She wants to be
Yeah,
seen. Okay, so that's a
yeah.
desire. So her desire is she wants to be seen. Why does she want to be seen?
I think because she's exhausted, um, pretending to be something she's not. She's spent her life in corporate and just afraid of debt and not fitting in. And now she doesn't fit in. She's been fired and outcasted. But my goal is to help her not care
So did you
about
say
all
that
of
she
these things.
struggles with debt,
Yeah,
financial debt?
financial debt. So she just is leading her life from a scarcity mindset.
So she's basically clinging to corporate America because it's the best way to get reliable income.
Yes, and also environment is willpower. So she's embraced it, and she thinks it's everything, and that these are her friends, and there's nothing more to life, really.
Okay. So she thinks her
So
only way forward is the job that she has.
yeah,
Okay. So what happens when she loses her job? What is she going to do?
it's a bit of a coming of age journey. So she wanders around for a bit. She is consumed with existential dread and starts doing a bunch of research and looking back at her ethics and morality books, trying to figure out if she can become a decent human being, and swings the pendulum the opposite way. And it's like, okay, if nobody wants to hang out with me, I'll just figure out how to become decent, and goes down this rabbit hole of depression for the beginning of the book, and then clings on to different people. So she repeats her old patterns by trying to fit in with different groups of people, even though it's not corporate America anymore. It's the same mistake.
Who is she? Who is she? What makes her happy?
um Telling jokes. She's a kid. She's a 20 something kid who's really spent most of her time partying, and
So
and
maybe she doesn't know what she
she
likes.
she doesn't, and that's part of the reason she's fired, is because she tells this joke that was thoughtless, and she she cares a lot about people pleasing. So she has to struggle to figure out, when she's telling a joke, because it's just funny, versus low hanging fruit. She puts her foot in her mouth, sort of like a mix of Salinger meets Bridget Jones.
Okay. So it sounds like this is a pretty big transformation journey. It sounds like she's going to go from basically being somebody who probably doesn't have a lot of exposure to other cultures and understanding of the nuances of conversation or societal behaviors to somebody who understands her worth and knows what she wants from life and has experience with diversity. That is a massive story to tell all in one. So I think you should chop it up. And by chop it up, I mean, give her milestones along that journey, that big journey, and say, okay, the first milestone to getting to the end point is A. This story is about getting to A.
Yeah.
So what does that look like? So what is that journey between basically young and immature to experienced and wise for her? So that's what you have to figure out, right? Is that you want to tell a story of personal evolution, right? Of finding yourself, because it's such a hard thing to do, isn't it? Like when you're 20 or 30, I'm 45, 40, 46, 40 something. numbers. I don't care. I don't care about them. I'm 40 something. And I remember I didn't figure out what I wanted to do until I was in my mid 30s. And even before that, I just jumped from thing to thing, right? I knew that I had a passion, but I didn't know what to do with it. So think about in your life when you have gone through these struggles, What were the things you tried to do and what ultimately worked out for you? How can you take that wisdom and apply it to this character's journey? So then you can sort of figure out, okay, so maybe the first thing she needs to realize is that she has worth. Like she can't understand other people until she understands who she is. Or maybe she doesn't need to start there. Maybe she needs to start with being exposed to other cultures. For instance, what if she did study abroad and then she was exposed to, like, when I went to study abroad in Paris, and I will tell you, Americans are the loudest people. We are so loud. And if you go into any of the cafes there, you know who the Americans are because they don't care if everybody can hear them talking. And it was a cultural awakening, not just that, but a lot of my experience there. So there are things that you can sort of like situations you can put her in that look like an opportunity, but that are also a conflict or a challenge personally, because she wants to do it, but to do it, she's going to have to grow and stretch. That was a super vague answer. And I'd rather be more specific, but I don't like, it's my job to help guide you to tell the right story.
Yeah, I have so much work to do now that we're talking about it, because there's all these different revelations she needs to have, and it's all generally coming of age, but you're right. There's like what's point A versus point B.
Right. Yeah. And then once you understand what the end point is, there's 5 phases in the transformation journey. So the first one, there's a fear, right? So a fear, like a root core, deep fear is what drives the entire story, the whole book. So once you have that first milestone, there's 5 phases. The first phase is mired in fear. So that's like every decision they make is made from fear. Like she's clinging to her job. She's unhappy, but she doesn't really know that she's unhappy. She's just kind of doing what she's going about her life, right? This is all she knows. And then there's resistance to change. They're put in a situation where they have to make a decision, and it's a really uncomfortable decision, and they do what they think is best so that they can hold on to their current life. They can stay safe. They're resistant to changing. And as they go through that phase, they're going to start to realize that all the things they thought that protected them actually don't, and that they need to stop being afraid and start taking risk. So then they're in the considering change. That's the middle of the transformation, which is where they're kind of right there on the edge, like, all right, this is really uncomfortable and I don't really want to change, but I can kind of see how maybe I should, maybe it would be a good thing. And you can put obstacles there and you can help like slowly show them, like breadcrumb them, right? And then the fourth phase is committed to change. So now they have realized, yep, I can't live in fear anymore. I do have to actually do this. This is going to suck, but I'm going to do it. And here's how I'm going to do it. And that's your phase 4, committed to change. And then finally, they are transformed. They are a whole new person. They cannot go back to being the person that they used to be because they don't fit in that skin anymore. They just don't make that decisions in the same way. So that is what your growth arc looks like. That's how you plan out this different stages of the book. And it's usually phase 1 and phase 2 are act 1-ish, a little into act 2, if you're doing a 3-act story. Phases 3 and 4 are acts 2 and part of 3. And then you get a little bit of the final transformation glimpse at the end of act 3 or the epilogue. That was a lot of information.
No, that's good. And I think my last question then is, I understand these phases, and I think my character goes through these phases, but I've set it up so that she has a transformation and you think she's changed, but then she makes a dumb decision and it ends with her. It's a series, so it ends with her making kind of the wrong decision. Is that totally unsatisfying for a reader, or is
Oh,
that?
that's a really good question. So there's a couple different answers to this. Sorry, something in my eye. There's a couple different ways I could approach that. One is, who's your audience? What do they want to read? What do they expect from you? One of the most important editing decisions or writing decisions that you have to make is, who's going to read my stuff? Who do I want to buy my books? And what do they expect from a story? What do they expect from my style? What style am I willing to give them? Right? There's a compromise there between what you want to write and what they want to see. And you need to find the people that are like that perfect mesh of what you give and what they want. So I would say, what do they like? Would they be okay with that kind of ending? Is that exciting for them? If not,
Yeah,
then no. But if yes, then yes.
yeah, yeah, I think so. It's very, I mean, disaster character like Bridget Jones or Fleabag. So I think the audience is looking for a train wreck. So yes, I think
And
so.
that it does hook into the next story. So if you're going to do a series, then in the next story, you can have them take that little bit they've learned as a stepping stone and then give them a new challenge to work through.
Okay. Thank you, Sue.
Yeah.
James, did you have a question? Do you want to take the last mini consult?
Okay. My hand down. Okay. Anyway, what I was wondering, we talked earlier, I'm sorry. So you talked earlier about stories being either character driven or plot driven. Is there ever a combination of the two, or if you try to pull that off, are you kind of spinning your wheels?
So yes, you can combine the two, but generally it leans one direction or the other. So if you have something that's more of a combination, sort of balance between the two, what you have is more of a flat growth arc. And that just means that there's not a transformation or there's a very small transformation, which might be okay. So let's say you're writing urban fantasy. In urban fantasy, there's, you may have 5 or 6 books in a series, and the character grows throughout the entire plot of the entire series, right? So just like with Jess, I was talking about milestones. So with that kind of character arc, you would have independent plots for each of the books in the urban fantasy series, but you would have character milestones for growth. Each book hits, and it's part of a big arc that goes up and across. So you have a little bit more flexibility with how much growth happens in a single book because it's less, the book itself is more about the adventure and it's slowly nudging the character along their growth. But the series facilitates the full growth arc, which should be significant. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense. Let me run something by you here. I haven't written this or anything like that, but I have an ongoing series where it's a female character as the lead character. And I say something, I just got this idea during the meeting, as a matter of fact. But earlier in the store, I said she was thinking about becoming sheriff because she's already deputy sheriff. It's like, could I use maybe all of the action and then as the story starts to peter out, everybody says, hey, you did a good job doing this, let's make you sheriff, or is that too much of an abrupt change?
I don't know if I know enough about the story, but I would say that if you're right, are you writing 3 acts or 4?
Three.
3. Okay. If you
Yes.
were writing in 4 acts, which is typically what you do for urban fantasy, the last act zips up the action. So you have all this external stuff acting on the character. And the first 3 acts are where they have their growth. And the 4th act is where they demonstrate that they have transformed. So you use the external plot to the crisis moment to like demonstrate, hey, I'm a new person. I'm making decisions in a different way. And that's why they can overcome it when they couldn't before. If you're doing it in 3 acts, then the act of her becoming sheriff probably needs to become the end story goal. Or it needs to be a reward for her achieving the end story goal. So I guess the question would be, what does she want to become sheriff, or is she resistant
yes, she
to it?
wants it. Yes.
She wants it. Okay. So why does she want
because
to
she's
be?
been deputy sheriff a long time, for like 10 years. And she's driving down the road and thinking about should she or shouldn't she run for sheriff when all the action starts taking place.
So sheriff is an interesting position in law enforcement because it's elected, I believe, instead of promoted. So there's a special type of person that wants to become a sheriff as opposed to somebody who wants to be promoted through, say, a police department, through work done, right? So why does she want to be sheriff? Yes, she's been deputy for a while, but what is the thing inside her that's motivating her to say, I want to run for office and I want to be the leader in charge of everything?
Believe it or not, like I said, I didn't plan this, but I have an answer for that. It's like she's divorced and she has 2 kids that are both in high school, and she's thinking maybe being sheriff it get her more regular hours and also a little more money to be, and that way she can benefit the kids.
Okay, so she it's comfortable because it's already in the space that she's working in, but it would give
Yes,
her more resources. So maybe
right.
would she have more time with her kids or less time?
Well, it's a small town, so I'm going to say more time.
Okay, so she would have more time with her kids and more money.
Mm-hmm.
Time and money. Okay, so it sounds like quality of life is what's important to her, right? So
Right.
if quality of life is what's important to her, would you say that that's also what she wants to give to other people?
Some, well, she doesn't really say that anywhere, but I was thinking throughout the story, just her actions would answer yes to that question. But she never, I don't really deal with it, but I'm looking at, the sacrifice she makes, all that kind of stuff.
What sacrifice does she make?
Okay. Well, first of all, it's like it's trying to take care of her mom and dad for one thing. Little does she know that the mom's probably dead, but she has a kid that gets killed also as the story goes on. And she kind of nursemaids a workmate as things fall apart. Her workmate, she's around your age. She's around 40ish, and her the lady she ends up working, second female character, as a matter of fact, but is around 60ish, maybe late 60s, early into 70, and she kind of feels even though there's a significant age difference there, instead of the older person feeling like taking care of the younger person, it's the younger person feeling maternalistic toward the older person.
Is she a natural caregiver?
You know what? I don't know because I haven't really dealt with that aspect of the character.
So it does sound to me like this is more, it's less character driven and more plot driven because
Yes,
I'm not
this was
seeing
definitely plot driven. Yes.
yeah, I'm not seeing connections between what happens and who the character is.
Mhm.
So if you want it to stay plot driven, it's not my specialty.
Okay.
Not sure how to help.
That's cool though. I mean, yeah, it's like I know we're a little bit about where to head and stuff, what to do with,
Yeah.
do I just cut it right there at 3 acts, have a happy ending, or do I carry it to 4 and she runs for sheriff and all that kind of stuff? Okay.
Well, I mean, it's a good question. I think it really depends on what you want the heart of the story to be. What's the message you want to tell with the story?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Cool. That's okay. I mean, yeah, gives me something to think about. Okay.
Yeah. So think about what message do you want readers to take away from the story?
Mhm.
Do you want them to feel empowered that they too could do this thing that she has decided to do? And if so, why? What makes her able to push through her conflicts? What are her conflicts? How are those relatable to the reader?
Okay.
Figure
Yeah.
out, like, instead of focusing on what action you want to happen, think about what message you want to tell and how the action can help you tell that message.
Okay, because what you can do, I mean, it's kind of late for me to do this on this particular story, but it's like plan that out, before you
Yeah.
start your story.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You can
Because I
save
mean,
so much time if you know not just like what's going to happen, but the essence of the story, the message, the transformation. If you know that before you plan the story, you save so much time
yeah, but
in
see,
revisions.
that's a problem I have. I mean, this story started out, being plot driven, but I'm kind of a draw it out kind of guy, and I'm saying, it's like, I don't like doing this. Sometimes I feel like I'm running a comic book, but
Right.
I mean, it's episodic stuff. I have to do a couple of weeks, people dig it though, but and I go off in different directions,
Oh,
feeling better. Like one week I'm cool, the next week I'm not, because like I said, I feel like I'm writing comic books. So
so are you releasing it as a serial, like small chunks for
yeah,
readers?
yeah.
Okay. Oh, okay. Okay.
It's more Kindle Vella. That's what it
Yep.
is.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay. That's
Yeah.
what
So
it is.
it's designing a story like that is a little bit different than a fully, like, a novel that comes out all at in one piece. So
Mhm.
it does help if you know where it's going, but because you are releasing it in serial format, as long as each bit is interesting and leads into the next and people are still reading the story, you do have some flexibility. I mean, you're doing something right if you're getting page count or page views, right? So then just think about how can you make that experience even better by trying to tie in more of like a character journey or a message or a theme or something like that.
Okay. If nothing else, bring the kids up a little bit, or something like that. Okay, cool. Okay.
Yeah,
It's a
think
big
about
help.
what elements of the story you want to emphasize in the next episode and start
Uh-huh.
pulling in teasers of that into the current one.
That's what I was thinking, kind of, plant the seeds and, bring it out then. Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. I hope that was helpful. I'm sorry. It's less
Very
plot driven
helpful.
is less my specialty.
That's okay. It's very helpful.
Good.
This is like therapy for our characters.
I feel like a psychologist sometimes, because a lot of what I do is
Yeah.
actually based in human psychology. And I mean, I'm not trained in psychology. It's all just instinctual stuff. And I study humans. Like people are fun, right? So yeah, I feel like I am people's therapist sometimes.
Yeah, and I gather you read a lot of character-driven stories, which
Mhm.
is kind of psychology too.
Yeah.
Okay, well, so we have a couple general editing questions in the chat.
Yes.
Um,
Let's see.
Jackie asks, what do you recommend an author look for or ask when hiring an editor?
So first of all, what kind of editor? So you need to know what do they offer? What services do they offer? And make sure that don't just ask, do you copy edit? Do you line edit? Do you story edit? What does that actually mean to them? Because some people call line editing copy editing, and some people call story editing line editing. And I mean, everybody has a different definition, right? So clarify exactly what kind of changes you want on your story and make sure that they offer that thing in a way that you can actually consume. So examples of that would be, do you want them to stet your manuscript? So if it's a copy edit, do you want them to go through and make the changes for you? Like actually cross it out in Word and show track changes and then you can accept or reject? Or do you want them to just comment and say, but what about this instead? There's different ways of doing that. Copy editing is usually with the inline reject, accept, but line edits can be a little more stylistic. So line edits would be changes for style. Most people don't pay for line edits because it's the most important stylistically, but it's the most expensive, and it's also the thing that your story will benefit the least from as far as a reader is concerned. So for a story editor like me, a developmental editor, you would want to find out what do they specialize in. Like we just talked about, there's a big difference in plot development and character development. So if you work with an editor who is a plot focused editor, they're going to treat it very differently from someone who wants to focus on the transformation. Another question would be timelines. So when do you have to get your manuscript to them, and when are they going to give it back to you? And does that work for your timeline? Do you is it a developmental edit and you have a copy edit lined up for 3 months from now? Do you have enough time to do your edits by the time they give it back to you? So scheduling becomes a thing. How much are they going to charge you? What is their fee? So fees can be per word, or they can be a set fee plus per word, which is what I do, or they can be an estimate for the general project. Those are riskier because you want to make sure you know exactly what you're paying before you give it to them. That way they don't come back and say, well, it took me 5 more hours. I got to charge you 500 more bucks, right? You don't want that. So find out how much you're going to have to pay them when it's due, what they're going to do for you, and get it all in writing, get it in a contract that you both sign before any money or any manuscripts change hands, because then you're protected.
Can I ask one follow-up question? So is it standard or acceptable to ask for a small sample to make sure that it's going to be, we jive?
It is a practice that people do. And you're more likely to get a sample edit from a newer editor than from somebody who's established, because it depends on how you're using the sample edit. So I used to offer them and I don't anymore. I don't actually edit anymore. Well, I'll talk about that in a minute. But in copy editing, it's easier to get a sample edit because it's straightforward, right? So copy editing is based on the Chicago Manual of Style, usually for fiction, AP for nonfiction. And they're just an easy set of rules. They follow the rules or they don't follow the rules. However, if you don't understand copy editing, you're not really going to be able to tell if they've done the job right. You're just going to have to trust them. So it will give you an idea of how nice they're going to be to you and whether or not they know how to do inline changes. So you could potentially ask for that. Some editors will charge for a sample edit because it's time. It's harder to get a sample edit for a developmental because developmental is big picture, right? So I have to read your whole story to help you with any of the story. And it's hard to do that with a sample edit. Sometimes a developmental editor will do a sample edit on the first like 1 to 3 chapters, but that's risky too, because if you enter contests, you have polished those first 3 chapters to shine like a diamond. They are beautiful, which is misrepresentative. So the editor will think, oh, I could probably do this project in 15 hours. But it turns out the rest of your story is a hot mess. And now they need 25 hours, right? So they're going to misquote you. So yes, you can ask. The short answer is yes, you can. They may not do it, but ask. And you might have to pay for it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I know my editor did a sample edit, but also wanted to disqualify me. Like she only wants to edit books she likes. So that's kind of her personal reason why she does sample edits.
I did that in the beginning too. So there's kind of a sweet spot for finding an editor where they are experienced enough to do a good job, but not well known enough to be charging a lot or to be booked solid. And that window, if you can catch them in that window, it's like the Goldilocks window, right? Like it's perfect. And it's very hard to find because there's not a lot of editors compared to people who write books and need the services of editors. So yes, they are going to be picky about what they take on because they have limited time.
Right. Okay, our next question's from Alina. She asked, at what point do clients come to you with their manuscript? Alina started working with an editor when she had a clean draft that went through beta readers, but she's heard that some authors start much earlier.
Yeah, that is a really good question because the answer is you can work with a developmental editor anytime before you even write your story. That's actually what I do. So I started off being a developmental editor and I did the end story work. I actually had to figure out for myself what the difference between line and copy and dev was because I didn't have any formal training. It's like there isn't any out there for fiction, especially romance developmental editors. So I just sort of had to figure it out. And over time, I realized that my job is easier if I can talk to the author before they have put their heart and soul into 100,000 words. If we can just have a conversation about what do they want to do, who is the character, what's the character struggles, like basically what I talked to you about today is like what is that journey and how can we identify those pieces before you write the story? Or if you're not sure, you're totally a pantser. I'm a pantser too. It's okay. You're going to write the story. You're going to get to a point in the story and you're going to say, ooh, I don't know where this is going. That's also a good time to talk to a developmental editor because they can help you figure out what direction to go in. So the answer is anytime and all times.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, I kind of wish I started off with you. Okay, so I know you have a workshop on the weekend. I'm gonna come. I think I need it. Can you talk about what you
Yes,
do at your workshop?
I would be happy to. I have some slides. Do you mind if I share my slides? That'll be so much easier for me.
Sure, let me give you screen share access.
And yes, I will give you guys links in just a minute. I have a link from this and then I'll give you my website link too. But just for clarity, I am not editing anymore. I'm not doing manuscript edits anymore. I'm still doing story consults and I'll talk about that in just a minute. Share my screen. Sharing, who can share? Nope, that's not it. You would think I would be better at Zoom by now.
You'd think all of us would be better. But I feel like every single day people are muted and it's
Yeah.
fine.
It's a struggle. It's a struggle. Okay, I think I finally figured it out here. I need to share the correct tab. guys?
Oh, Mel, I love your question. That is exactly my dilemma with my characters is they grow and then they fail. And while Sue is distracted, I'm going to say, I think it's okay.
Okay, you should be able to see a screen right now that says
Yep.
story consultation.
Yep, we see it.
Great. Okay. Okay, perfect. So one of the most frequent questions I do get when I talk to groups like yours is how you can work with me. And I am retiring from doing individual manuscript edits. So if you want my personal help with a story problem, the best way to do that is a story consultation. And the current fee is $175 for an hour. And we can use that hour to talk about anything story related you want, especially in the realm of character-driven fiction. It looks a whole lot like what we just did, but it's an hour long. So you get a lot more done. And you can use that hour to talk about whatever you want. So maybe you want to get feedback on your character arc before you write the first draft, or maybe you want to troubleshoot a problem area in your current work in progress, or maybe you want to talk through a character's multi-book plot arc for a series that you're planning to write. A story consult's a great way to just get quick targeted help with your story wherever you are in the process of writing or revising it. But right now I do have a very special event coming up that I want to give you a preview of. Is it progressing? I'm struggling like, oh my gosh, I'm struggling so hard today, you guys. It didn't move, did it?
Nope.
Okay. We're just going to do this the
Yeah.
hard way. And now it moved. All right. In my work as a developmental editor, I have seen a lot of authors struggle with plotting. If this is a skill that you know you need to get better at, but traditional techniques just are not working for you, I encourage you to join me in a special live workshop this Saturday, February 18th. I'm hosting a half-day live workshop to walk you through planning the bones of your plot in a way that fits your writing style. You will walk away from this workshop with a cohesive story plan that is driven by emotion. And that matters because readers remember what they feel. The setup for this workshop is simple. I walk you through the thought process for my story snapshot method so you can get into the right mindset to do your best work. Then I will guide you through a series of focused micro writing sprints that will help you uncover just the right story elements without overthinking it. And then I will show you how to plug it all into a fill in the blank line lib template. And when you finish filling in your story snapshot line lib, you will have a complete story statement that sums up your character's transformation journey and ties it to the most important external plot events. So it's kind of like writing a character synopsis in 4 sentences. And that character arc is what should be the backbone of your plot if you're writing character-driven fiction. And the best part of this method is that by the time you get to the template, you have done the hard work. It's all done. It's so easy. You just fill in the blanks. And the total time of brainstorming for those micro sprints is 35 minutes. So that means that once you learn and get comfortable with this method, you can plan out most of the important moments of your first draft of a story from scratch in less than an hour, which is crazy. I mean, if you think about it, that's awesome. I love this method. It's so good. This workshop is masterclass level, and it is designed to help intermediate and advanced level authors write better stories faster. So if you're just starting out on your fiction writing journey, it might feel overwhelming. You are welcome to attend, but just know it is going to be fast and furious for the entire 4 hours. And my framework depends on you knowing some basic elements of the writing craft, like what GMCs are, how many story acts you prefer to write in. Saturday's workshop will have a morning and an afternoon session, and each will be 2 hours long. I'm doing this in a weird way that I don't usually do, so I'm just going to reveal everything there. This will be 2 hours long. Yes. So the morning session and the afternoon session are 2 hours long. And then we have a 30-minute lunch break in the middle. And I will also be doing quick check-ins during both sessions to be sure no one has fallen behind. You will get a comprehensive 50+ page workbook with recaps of all the micro sprints and the template. and room for you to write everything down. And you can reuse that workbook as many times as you want, because once you understand the flow for the story snapshot method, it's easy to do again and again. And there is no faster way to troubleshoot a problem with your story, or in our case, your story snapshot, than getting one-on-one help. So in this workshop, I will give at least one person, more if I have time, a quickie hot seat consultation, kind of like what we did today, but just for your story snapshot. So you'll read it for the group, and then I will help you make it even better. And even if you don't want to be in the spotlight, you might have an aha moment just from watching me ask someone else questions. Now, I know that 4.5 hours is a lot of time to concentrate, and that you might have to step away, or you might miss some of the sprints. Or maybe later you want to go back and revisit some parts of the workshop that you struggled with that first time. So while you do need to focus and pay attention, I know that life happens. So you will get at least 3 days after the live workshop to watch the full replay. And I'm probably going to extend that to 8. So you have the next weekend as well. I have given the original version of this workshop a couple times. This one is new and revised. And one of the things that I love hearing the most from writers who attend is how much it simplified the way they approach building a story. Plotting does not have to be complicated, and it doesn't have to be stressful. We just have to focus on the right story pieces and the reasons for those decisions. And some writers have used this method to troubleshoot a story they have already written. Sometimes the right plot pieces are already in the story, they just need to be tweaked a little bit. The story snapshot method can expose problems in a story without a heavy developmental edit. And it's also a great test to put your story through before you send it off to your editor, because you want to get the most out of your editor's first read through of a story. That first time we read it is when we do our best work. So if you're thinking, okay, this sounds great, but how much is it going to cost? The whole reason I'm hosting this workshop live is so I can record it and offer it as an on-demand, self-paced workshop in my online university. So this is going to be my signature course, probably sometime in June. And when I publish it there, the cost of the workshop will be at least $247. But for this special half-day live event this coming Saturday, the full price is $147. And I am running a special sweetheart deal right now with a 40% discount. So if you register before midnight Pacific time tomorrow, you can attend for only $87. So that said, oops, I stopped screen sharing. But that said, if character-driven fiction is not something that you write, or if you don't like to use frameworks in your plotting and drafting process, don't sign up for this workshop. A half day is a lot of time to spend in a workshop that just might not be right for you. So I am happy to answer any questions that you have about it, or any other questions that you had about the first part where I was talking about editing. And I'm going to drop the link in the chat for you guys, and also the link to my website.
Thank you, Sue. I'm kind of nervous, but excited.
I'm kind of nervous too. Okay, so there's the link for that. And my website is suebrownmarkup.com.
There is.
And there's a link for story consult in my navigation.
Amazing. Thank you so much. We are at the top of the hour. Sue, if you have time for one question, we can take it.
Sure.
If not, we
Yeah.
can stick in it. So could
stick
this
around.
help? KJ asked, could this help with drafting a blurb and a premise?
It can help with drafting a blurb because it will pull out the most important parts of the story. I turned my camera off. Let me turn it back on for you guys. Sorry. I don't like to have the camera on when I am doing a slideshow, because I read the slides and then I'm just looking at the slides. Okay, there we go. So yes, it won't be the full blurb, because blurbs are more marketing territory than story development territory, but it can give you the pieces. It can like simplify the heart of the story, which can help you with your blurb, but I wouldn't promise that it's going to write your blurb.
Okay, there you have it. So maybe I'll see some of you on Saturday at the workshop if you need as much help as I do with your characters.
I have, there's a question from Mel. Do you want me to answer one more question really
Oh
fast?
yeah, that was a good question.
Yeah. Does the character transformation journey always occur in a straight line, or can characters progress, then fail? Yes. So I love this question because I actually have a couple different graphs that illustrate different ways the character journey can look like. And yes, it can. So you can either start them making good decisions and then making poor decisions and then coming back up, or you can start them making poor decisions, then making good decisions. So it really depends on your style, and it doesn't matter. As long as you get them from mired in fear to transformed, that's the most important thing.
Okay. Thank you so much, Sue. I'm
Thanks
so
for
happy
having
we
me.
finally got you here. Yeah.
You guys
was
seem like a
great.
really fun group. I kind of lurked a little bit before I turned my camera on, and everybody seems so friendly.
Yeah, we're good. We're a cool group. All right, everybody. Thank you. Thank you so much, Sue. I would be happy to have you back anytime.
Thank you.
Yes, Patricia
Wow, this is amazing.
was direct messaging me, ratting you
I
out.
love you. I am in love with you, honestly.
Aw,
And I'm
thank
not
you.
even writing yet. I'm writing content, but not a book yet. So it's just fabulous. Thank you.
I know I can be a lot, so I'm not for everybody. So it's good. It's good to hear that you liked it.
You're for me. I know that much. Okay, everybody. I'm going to stop recording so we can head out. Where's the stop? See, I don't even know how to use Zoom. I'm on this thing every